Well, I would like to say a big thank you to my son, Owen, who is here this evening. Anybody here from Carmel High School? Oh, yeah? Got a kid in Carmel? Very good. So I'm here to talk to you, and it's my pleasure to be here, about how to teach your kid coding. And honestly, in Carmel, I have an AP Computer Science class, I have an AP Computer Science Principles class, I have an introduction to computer science, I have a web design, I have a games programming, I have independent study students, so there is a lot going on in Carmel. I have a bit.ly. I kind of feel like a paler and less rich Oprah this evening, because if you go to that bit.ly, you will have all of the source code for everything I'm showing you this evening. Okay, so there is one for everybody in the audience. You don't have to look under your chair. Okay, so there are many reasons for teaching your kid to code. I mean, it's the mathematics of the 21st century. Years and years ago, thousands of years ago, mathematics developed in the Nile Delta, okay? And nowadays, we have computer programming languages as tools to solve problems. And we have very many of them. I mean, we've got Python. I ask my students to Google the numbers of different programming languages, and the big wiki comes up and it goes from A through Z, and there's a ton of languages you've never heard of, and there's more that you haven't because they're proprietary ones. So there's lots of languages out there. Oh, you might want your kid to help you out later on and get rich. That's true too. Okay, so there are lots of tools available online. For instance, this little book here, Cracking Codes with Python, I think that full series is available online if you want it. What I normally do, and I have two resources, Scratch first, and number two is any other computer programming language. And seeing as how Calvin isn't here, okay. I've used Java, I've used C#, as well as, because to me it's a tool, and you're teaching them how to do things with the actual computer programming language. I tell my students that programming is all about loops and conditionals, and that's not entirely true, but it's mostly true. So one of the first things I start off with is Scratch, and I kind of thought that, are you familiar with Scratch? You are? Oh, by the way, I forgot to say, I'm from Ireland, as in Little Green Island, and I've been with Carmel for about 7 or 8 years, actually 7 years. Before that, I was a computer programmer. I was a software developer with IBM, and when I had my kids, I decided to go into teaching, and it's been great. I think Owen really appreciates having me there during summertime. He doesn't. So what I was going to do is go and show you something real quick. Does anybody have a computer with them? You do? Okay, all right. Let's do this. So what did I say computer programming was all about? Oh, were you listening? Loops and conditionals, okay, loops and conditionals. So very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to scratch.mit.edu. I need my glasses. Okay, now this is a really great way of teaching kids, and it's language neutral. It's a block. It's not even a computer programming language. It's just a platform. Seems to be taking a while to get into Scratch. You having the same problem?
Yeah, it's pretty slow.
Oh, here we go. Okay, if you click on the Create link, you don't even have to log in. I mean, you can have a Scratch account. Years ago, when I was teaching at Mount Vernon High School, and I met Carl's husband there, we used Scratch to create, we did talking motherboards, we created duck hunt in Scratch. You know what, this is not looking great right now. Oh, there we go. So what you can do is create a new project, and we can get rid of the little thingy that comes up. Now Scratch, as you can see over here, is made up of little blocks of code that all fit together like jigsaw puzzles. So one of the things I always like, you can do little things like have the Scratch cat say stuff. But what I actually like to do is get students started understanding what a loop is. And let me see here. I'm going to create, are you guys familiar with Scratch? You are? You like it? So I normally like the ballerina. Normally go and get the ballerina. Or it doesn't matter, just any of these little figures. Let's see if I can find that ballerina now. There she is, okay? The way you do an animation is it's a series of frames. So if I just select that ballerina, hopefully the ballerina will appear on stage. And I tell my students, look, I just told you computer programming is all about loops and conditionals. Now I'm going to get started on the first one, and that's a loop. So let's make the ballerina do a little dance. So we go to the control area, and you can take a forever loop, you can take a repeat loop, just drag over that code, and then go to the looks, and then do a next costume. And when you do that, you can double click. It's kind of like a psycho ballerina, so you need to introduce some control in there. And for that, you can go back to control and find the weight. And then you can tell that you can ask them things like, well, how are you going to slow that ballerina down? Do you want to change that from 1 second to 2 seconds? Do you want to change it to 0.5 maybe instead of 1? And then we figure that maybe 0.2 is one that works optimally. The other thing you can do is go and find under the events category, event-driven programming is very popular now, right? So Scratch has had it for a very long time. So anyway, here is, and you can change this number, you can do the forever loop. I don't know, let's make it 55 or something. So when we click this little flag, you can see the ballerina dancing, and it's a real super simple, very visual animation, and it just teaches them about what a loop actually is. So there's another little animation we can do involving a walker. And what that does is it introduces a conditional, and it shows them loops and conditionals working together. So I'm telling you, this thing is really good. It's low floor, high ceiling, so you can start with something small like this, and you can create duck hunt. I mean, if you look up scratch.mit.edu, you'll find all types of things in there. So if we want to ditch the ballerina, and go back and create a new project, say with a new sprite, we can take any of the walkers. There's a whole bunch of different characters we can use, none of which I'm seeing right now. Let's see. Anything that just kind of walks across the screen. Hey, help me out. Am I passing something? Did I pass a walker? So you have a football guy. Oh, here she is. Okay. Let's take Avery. So hopefully here is Avery on the screen. Did I click on that? Oh, now I have two of them. Okay. All right. So we want Avery to go across the screen. This is where you're showing them, this is how loops and conditionals work together. And you haven't gone near a traditional programming language. So what I'm going to do is pretty much the same thing. I'm going to drag over the when green flag clicked. This time I'm going to go for a forever loop, though. Let's see here, because I don't want to stop. I don't want to put I don't want to say stop after 10 or whatever. Because when the walker gets to the side, she's going to get stuck. I'll show you. So let's go to looks. And first of all, we'll do that change or next costume. Now this time we are actually going to have to move just a little bit because we want to simulate motion. So we'll just grab this move 10 steps. We don't want it to be a psycho walker either, so we're going to go back to control. By the way, I'm a high school teacher, and sometimes it's kind of obvious. You know, you get used to talking to teenagers. It's going to put a 0.2 in here. And then when I click the flag, she's going to go. Maybe I should have made her move faster. But she's going to get stuck at one of the sides, you know. Here she goes. Yeah, no good. So what we want to do is say, hey kids, that other thing I told you about that's part of computer programming, the conditional, let's have a look at how we can use that right now to make that character wrap around to the other side. So we can go back to control, and here's our conditional, here's our if. You know, I just call conditionals, ifs conditionals. And then you can have a look at the operators. You can use operators with this as well. And the operator that you might think about is the greater than operator. Of course, we're going to need the X position. So we can get that under motion. Now, then it's a good opportunity to talk to them about the X and Y coordinate system. The next thing I'm going to talk to you about is Python and the Turtle module. And very many places use the Turtle module to teach high schoolers and middle schoolers about geometry. So anyway, for this, I am going to grab the X position and just slot it into one part of that operator. And then if you hover your mouse cursor over the side, you can see that it says round about 240. So I'm going to change this to say maybe 135 and then bring it back up. Now, does any genius know what I need to do if my character is walking off the screen on one side and I want to wrap it around and bring it in on the other side? What do I do? Would you gentlemen be able to help me? No? No? Flip 180, we could do that. We could have them walk the other way. If I want to wrap it around the other way, I might just set the value of the X. You know, we can do that too. So first of all, we need to put the if inside the body of the loop because we go through a little exercise there too. And then we can do a set X2. And we can change this, you know, talk about that coordinate system, 0, 0 in the middle. That's what Scratch does because it's created years and years and years ago at MIT to teach kids how to program, and now they use it at universities and, you know. But I'm going to set this to negative 249, and that should be on the other side. Positive 249 is there. And let's see what happens. And there she goes. So that's loops and conditionals working together. And that's really the foundation of computer programming. So after Scratch, and we don't spend any more than a week or maybe 2 weeks on Scratch, and then we move on to different things. So the different things could be, it could be Java or C# as well as Python. But it's Python. Yeah. Okay. So let's finish this, and then we will go back over here. So resource number 1 for me is always Scratch, scratch.mit.edu. There is, if you go on the internet, there is a ton of stuff out there, some of which you pay for, some of it is free. Quite literally thousands of different things that you can do. And I've been teaching this for 10 years, and I keep going back to Scratch, okay? So anyway, resource number 1. Now, I explained about the simple animation and all the controls and other things that you can do with Scratch. Resource number 2 is a programming language, and you know, Python is really great. Python is great. I was really happy to see your Hangman game, and you know, because you can quite literally start out with some very simple Python commands like print and input together. And you can, what's your name? And then use input to get the username, and then just train that combination together and make it look like the computer's talking to you. Okay, so there's that. You can do the times tables. Let me just go out over here and show you what I'm talking about. So this is what's available to you because you're my favorite audience. You can have all of the source code I'm giving you and play with it with your kids. There's a bit.ly that I asked them to put up here. And hey, Calvin, where's that bit.ly? Oh, Mary Beth has it. Okay, so, simple stuff like, here's the all times tables. Oh, and by the way, for the editor, I use plain vanilla idle. It's uncluttered, it's very simple, and it works out really, really well. Now, I super comment for education purposes. Can you see that? So, I teach my students to put a little doc string at the top. And again, if I was doing this myself, you wouldn't see all the little comment lines, but you might see some of them. But just simple little things like this, what happens, we get the all times tables, and that's a nested loop, so there we go. And if they see something like that, they know it's real because they've done it before, and it applies to school. And I think if you can tap into what's real and what they actually need, it's great. So you can do a couple of other things in there, and all types of while loops and for loops. And Python is a rich language with different ways of doing lots of different things. So, hang on. So the next thing I wanted to introduce you to is the turtle module. Actually, Calvin, a couple of years ago, I met him, and he told me about the turtle module, which is kind of like Logo. Does anybody remember Logo? It was developed, so what's Logo? I don't know. I know it was a language that was developed like in the 1960s, right? Yeah. So, I'm going to show you a little bit of how you can use the turtle module to reinforce things like loops and conditionals, to make it a lot of fun, and to show them how programming works. So I'm going to go back over here, and again, you have all of this source code. I have it on Google Drive. Education uses Google Drive. And I put a couple of little turtle intro projects in here. So with this one, I've called it function precursor, but I'm actually going to show you something different first. What I normally do is give them a diagram like this and tell them to go do it in Python, okay? And that's a starter. And you can create a cityscape as well that looks kind of like this with the turtle module. And it's just like drawing. You create a little drawing object, and Bob's your uncle. So here is one that I created. Let me see if there's one that solves this one. It's a little brown dog. And let's see what this one is. This is the sunny day in the lonely forest. Let's see, did I do two? The tulips. Okay, so this little sketch done by some kid randomly in Word gets translated with the turtle module into this. And, talk in terms of what you do. I'm really glad you brought up importing. This is full of import. You have to import the turtle module, and then also the random module, because you're encouraging them to think about how to use the random module and one block of code. We don't want to draw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tulips. We want to create a draw tulip function. So there's another one we have in here called function precursor. I'm just going to open this up. What I normally get them to do is create those pictures with the Python turtle module and then go back and look at their code and have them introduce loops. Because when you're drawing a rectangle, that's just repeat 4 times, right? Up, right by 90, and then across, and then so on and so forth. So, what you've got basically is import the turtle module, import random, and the rest is just, once you create that turtle object, you can do a phenomenal amount with it. I mean, it's just amazing, and you're getting them to use all of their coding skills as well. So, with this particular one, we have a flower, and it's composed entirely of circles. And I'll just show you what happens. It kind of goes on for a long time, but yeah. So you got different colored flowers. You're passing in the color of the flower. You're passing in the length of the stem. You're passing in you give it an initial location for the flower, and they have just created a function that draws flower, and that's it. So it's a fantastic little module, and they love it. Right now, I have an introduction to computer programming class, and they're on the last couple of weeks before summer break. So I gave them a couple of those little projects to do with the turtle module. Fantastic. So there is definitely that. Now, the other thing that I use quite a bit is Tkinter. So do you know what Indiana Online Academy is? It's an online school. I wrote them a course in Python. So there's semester 1 and semester 2. And, I knew I wanted to use Python for semester 1, but I was kind of challenged about what to do for semester 2, and I wanted to use PyGame, but you know what? I'm going to give it to you straight. PyGame is difficult to use. Would you agree with that? It is. And the other night I kind of left it until the last minute, but I realized I did not have PyGame on my computer. So you got to use the pip installer now, and there was this business about some 32-bit wheel, and I needed a 64-bit wheel or something, but figured it out. But it was awkward, and it was difficult, and people are going to give up. So I went with something called Tkinter, and it's native with Python, and gives them a really good idea of how to set up forms and how to develop projects that do real things. Okay, and I noticed the Tottenham Hotspur. Where's the Tottenham Hotspur gentleman? Where's he gone? Is he still here? No? Oh, okay. Well, I really enjoyed that talk, but does anybody know Tottenham Hotspur? You do? Okay. So, Harry Kane is my cousin's son. Are you impressed? I mean, I've never met him or anything like that, but he's my cousin's son, and I'll show you. So the last thing I'm going to talk about is, in fact, PyGame, because with the games programming class, there was a guy called Andy Harris from IUPUI, and I used to teach the course there, and he's written a great book, but I use PyGame. I may actually use JavaScript this time around, but so just to reinforce, what's so good about Python? When you're teaching Python to kids or any programming language, you don't have to worry about the curly braces, because it is a bit of an issue for them, really is an issue. The indentation is clearer for them, and in many ways they're forced to use indentation, which, it encourages them to structure their code, and it's visual as well, because they can see what's within the block rather than having a little curly brace here and maybe there's another one lost up the other end. So anyway, with Python, simple stuff before you even go into using the turtle module. How do you generate a random quote? You had import random. You know, do a list and stick a little quotes in there, and then get a random number between 0 and the size of the list, -1. And, you know, they love that type of stuff. I have, you know, in high school, I have teenage, mostly boys, and sometimes you really have to watch to make sure that they do school appropriate quotes, because, you know, but, you know, they can also make a points to grade calculator without going into Tkinter, just using straight Python. The 7 times tables I showed you, and there's one for everybody in the audience, the all times tables. We have a quick look. How am I doing on time? Okay. Okay. So I just mentioned the turtle module, and you do a huge amount with the turtle module. Plenty of tutorials online that you can go to. And like I said, you can recreate pictures. Give your kids a picture and tell them to recreate the picture with the turtle module, and you know, they really enjoy that. I mean, I have high schoolers who are aged 14 plus, and they get a great buzz out of this, you know, so it's fantastic. Now, Tkinter. Okay, so Tkinter is what I used for the applications development part of my course with Indiana Online. Again, it is not super easy to use, okay? But when you're learning German or French or any type of a different language, there are things that you have to know about and you have to learn. Ditto with any computer programming language. So like I said, Tkinter native with Python, you don't have to worry about it. Import Tkinter, that's it. This is how you put in a couple of little buttons and so on. And there are lots of tutorials and sample code online. And even I had mentioned AWS. Anybody know what AWS stands for? Of course we do, right? Amazon Web Services. And I really want to, I want to learn more about Amazon Web Services myself so that I can bring it into the school. I saw that. I saw that. And I'm definitely going to try to make it. There's a company called Developer Town. Do you know them? I know that they do a lot of AWS stuff, so you might contact them and maybe ask if any of them would be interested in speaking. So anyway, with AWS for either, you know, personal or business account or for education, you can go in and use Tkinter as well. You don't have to do anything different or special. Not so much with PyGame. Okay, so again, I have this for everybody in the audience. It's in the source code. You know, I started them with a couple of, I guess I did a message box first, and then I put a couple of buttons there, and you know, when you press the one, it does the French translation. So let me just go back over here, and this is my game, How Do You Like Them Apples in Python. So when you click a good apple, you get points, and when you click a bad apple, the points get taken away. I have the same thing in C# with Visual Studio, and anyway, the kind of funny thing about this particular game is there's a newish course called Computer Science Principles, and the students have to produce 2 tasks, explore and create. The create one is a computer programming task, and my Python How Do You Like Them Apples game showed up on like some student had submitted it, and I was able to put them straight as to where it actually came from. Anyway, let me just go back in here. And let me see, where am I going here? Tkinter. So I just threw a couple of little samples in here. Let's see. Using list widgets, using label and message widgets. Yeah, let's try this one. So just a couple of little simple things. That might be a good one for your quotes. And quite literally, all you're doing is importing Tkinter. And again, I've used quite a few little comments here. But, you know, just explain to them, look, this is what you do. And, you know, it's not any big deal if you start them off right and tell them there are these widgets, buttons, lists, labels, images, and you put them on the screen. And then there are these other things called events, and you can handle events in your code. We do that with Visual Studio, with C#, and we do it here with Tkinter, with Python. So let me see here now. Let me see, language buttons.py. So here's a really simple little application for them. You know, you click on a button and it gives the French translation. And again, you know, your code is in that bit.ly link. And I do like to use plain idle because it's uncluttered. A lot of the other editors are kind of confusing. There's a lot of different things going on. But, you know, this is a phenomenal way to teach them. Can you see that there? So, you know, you got a dictionary in there, and you've got an event handler. And now, you know the lambda, like where you're passing a function to a function, this is getting a little bit advanced for them. But once they know what's going on and they understand it, they'll use it again. Okay, so in this case, I have one click handler, and I'm passing in different numbers to the one click handler so that I don't have to have 4 of them. So, you know, building up on little sample applications. So let me go back in here. Oh yeah, the other thing, when you're teaching them how to use Tkinter, and they feel good about getting a level of mastery over it because it's real. It's not like, you know, there's like App Lab and what is it, MIT App Inventor, 10 minutes, okay, I'll be quick. But they really love to create something that's useful and real and applies to them, whether it's a game or something else. And they also like to be started with some sample code. Now, like I said, my cousin's son, Harry Kane, is a striker. He's injured right now. Does anybody follow European soccer? Oh, yeah, well. So he got himself injured. When was it? The middle of March? It was the middle of March. And anyway, he hadn't been able to play for a while. Apparently he's fixed now. He's all better. And Tottenham play Liverpool on June 1st in Madrid, UEFA Cup. So anyway, here is something that I develop for them and give them as template code. So they can, you know, go through and see how it works. What happens when I double-click an item in a list? You know, let me develop a click handler for that. How do I handle images with Python? And, you know, even just to keep everything in the one folder, just to reduce the complexity is also a good little touch. But, you know, in this, it's really not a huge amount of code, but you do have a lot of really important concepts in there. And then they can apply that to their own volleyball team. They can apply it to their soccer club or anything else that they want. So I'm encouraging them now to actually, if they have a history project that they might have done with a PowerPoint, I'm trying to encourage them to use either Python or Visual Studio with C#, or anything really to, you know, instead of using the PowerPoint, just so that they can tune their coding skills and be able to be really creative with it. So that was one of them. Here is the how do you like them? Oh yeah, and this is another little piece of sample code I got for them. I think if I click here, something will happen. So this is, write a letter to 1,000,000 of your favorite, of your closest friends, and it's called the letterator. So normally I give them that sample code, and I tell them to enhance it. Add quotes in there, add another section, and they go and they change it. So just being able to have something that actually works first, and then they can add to, is tremendous for high school students or for anybody just starting out. So, you can click a dear, or, you can put in a name here, and you can select different things to say, and then you can write the letter, and it'll write, it'll just do a simple text file. For the Tottenham Hotspur, that was also reading from a flat file as well, and we had the splitting of the, each line into different parts based on a comma, which is another really big, important concept for them. And here is my, how much time do I have left? 5 minutes. Okay, here is my How Do You Like Them Apples game, which some kid lost marks on the computer science principal exam because they gave it in its native form. But, just these are buttons, and just anything that's fun, they can create with this template code. And you can click on, you can even see where the buttons are. You see the little square that comes up. So it obviously doesn't look very professional, but you know what? They just love it because they can go and they can take an image of a skeleton for their biology project, and they can put because that's a little apple tree in the background, and they can put the skeleton in the background, and then they can create transparent buttons over the different parts of the skeleton. And again, use it for their biology project. The teachers love it, they really do. So anyway, I'm just going to go back over here. And again, you have all of that. Did I ever put that? Oh, it's all right there. So all your little samples are there. I just want to very quickly go into PyGame because I do really, really, really like PyGame. So Andy Harris is the guy at IU who introduced me to the idea of using PyGame for teaching. And, you can start very, there's a, you can start by creating a simple window first. Code is in there. And then you can extend that to having lots of moving boxes on the screen. You can just kind of move them around the screen. Another great way to teach them about the XY coordinate plane. Then if you go into more advanced stuff with Python and PyGame, we actually one thing I really like to do is encourage students to use coding for good purposes, like not just Nicolas Cage's head floating around and colliding with stuff. But a couple of years ago, we did try to start something with Riley Hospital, where my students at Carmel would create, in Python, because that was the gaming class, create games to, like maybe some of the patients would have muscular dystrophy and they needed to do a particular thing. So one of my students created this game. I think it's Cactus and Roadrunner. And this is just some of the stuff that you can, I hope I copied the right one. Let's see. I think it's called Roadrunner. Yeah. Might have to show you a different example. Let's see. Let me turn my sound up. Oh, it's up. So there's another one, Max, Russian Sky. So this has like Russian music in the background, and although I'm not hearing the Russian music in the background. So this is a fighter game. So again, done with Python and PyGame, and you can. Where's my sound effects? How come I don't have sound? Oh, okay. Okay, so you get the idea. You can do the weapons of mass destruction if you want to, or you can do the nice stuff as well. There's another one here that when I this is called Owen and the River Monster, for Owen down there, when he was just a little kid. This is another template I give them. And there is, have you heard of Reiner's tile set? No? Oh, it's just a phenomenal, it's a pity I didn't get it in there, but Reiner's tile set, some Austrian guy who develops sprites, and I think it's like, what do you call that, the license, what's that, the Creative Commons, that's it. So anyway, they use that, and then you can make the character do a quick little jump, and of course if the character gets in contact with the river monster, a fight breaks out, and then he can get stuck in the sand. It's just a couple of little ideas, but that code is in there too. Now, one thing that I really do like about PyGame, I'm just going to edit this and show you a phenomenal amount of math, okay? Do you remember SOHCAHTOA? Do you remember SOHCAHTOA? Okay, so turns out when you want to move a sprite on a screen, say XY coordinate plane, and 0, 0 is going to be in the top left-hand corner. But when you want to move it diagonally, you're going to move X. You're going to move the sprite by X and Y displacements. So it turns out that you can use sine and cosine to do that, okay? And it's a great way to pull in all types of mathematics. So, because that little character on the screen, first of all, that's courtesy of Reiner, Kane, or whatever. And the sprites are set up to move and look like they're moving in different directions. So 45 degree rotations, and it is just fantastic. So, am I done? See, PyGame samples, starter and final projects. Oh yeah, I do have, I'm sure my students wouldn't mind, but I do have a couple of their final projects up here, including Tina, the dart-throwing monkey. Anybody know that? And again, you see, I need the sound effects. Oh my goodness. But you see the way that little arm is moving? Boom. Now, if the sound was on, you'd hear all the balloons being popped. Okay, so there you have it. Anyway, from scratch as an introduction, teaching them about loops and conditionals, phenomenally important. Then using that turtle module to, in a very visual way, teach them again about loops and conditions, but also about functions and how you use lists and use random numbers and so on. And then using Tkinter to create applications that they can actually use and be proud of. And then PyGame, all part of Python. And one of the reasons why I do enjoy it as a teacher, I do enjoy it as well as the other stuff, but mostly Python. Thank you.
Awesome. Let's give Jacqui a big round of applause. Does anyone have questions for Jacqui? Wade or Ryan?
Yeah, quick question. Are you using programming to teach any of the math concepts that they're learning in school?
Oh, I do all that.
Excuse me?
You mean?
So are you using computer programming to teach, some of the, things that are,
Oh, I absolutely do. I absolutely do.
Classes on those type of resources?
Yeah, I mean, I would, I would look at, they're using that turtle module to teach geometry in different parts of the US, so I would definitely do that. Talk about rotations. I usually call my turtle object Yertle, just because, Yertle the turtle, but you can rotate the object by different degrees, and you can really show them how to draw spirals and, get their angles, and it's amazing. It's amazing. And then with PyGame, and it is a little bit, it's not exactly easy, but again, I do have the code there for you to have a look at. And, most of it is courtesy of Andy Harris. That notion of having a 2D array of character poses and then moving those characters, in 45 degree, like north, south, east, or west, and then northeast and southwest and so on. That's a phenomenal thing for mathematics. I mean, to realize that, you're using vectors, you're using trigonometry to make a gain, and that is the way you make them move on a screen anyway, so yeah. But it's great.
It's cool.
I started my teaching career, I was a computer programmer, went back to IUPUI, taught math in Mount Vernon for about 8 months, and then I went into teaching computer programming.
Any other questions for Jacqui? Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for coming out and being with us tonight at
And
IndyPy.
thank you very much.